Hey guys, welcome to Python for Beginners tutorial. This is day one of Python tutorial for beginners. You can start learning Python programming from scratch. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and write comments in the comment section of this tutorial as well. So we're going to explore an introduction to Python programming, comments, functions, and variables, and strings in Python programming. So this is the basic programming tutorial for beginners. If you are absolute beginner, you can start learning and you can be a Python developer. Okay, what's Python? Python is a programming language like other programming languages such as C++, Java, C Sharp, and other C programming languages. Like other programming languages, gives us a way to communicate our ideas with a computer. So in the case of a computer programming language, our ideas are commands that help us to communicate with a computer. So as a computer programmer, so we communicate with a computer through commands. So the computer could understand our commands, our ideas through commands through the computer program. That is the language that the computer and the computer programmer communicate with each other. So Python is one of the computer language that help us to communicate with our computers through commands, and the commands which contains our ideas to communicate with a computer. Python is one of an interpreted object-oriented high-level programming language with dynamic semantics. Python is also a powerful dynamic type programming language. So we can classify computer programming into dynamic and static type programming language. Most of the static type programming languages are called compiled languages. So Python is not a compiled language. It is interpreted language that interprets each of the commands line by line, then running or compiling all source codes at a time. So Python is a high-level built-in data structures combined with dynamic typing and dynamic binding that make it very attractive for rapid application development, as well as for use as a scripting or glue language to connect existing components together. The other thing of Python that is simple, easy to learn, syntax emphasizes readability, and therefore reduces the cost of program maintenance when we compare with other programming, especially compiled programming languages. Because it is a dynamic programming language, it is easy to learn syntaxes, and it is easy to read. So it reduces cost of program maintenance. That is the best thing. That's why we choose Python programming for artificial intelligence and machine learning. It also supports a huge developer community, packages, and modules, which encourages program modularity and code reuse. So it supports huge resources on the internet. The Python interpreter and the extensive standard library are available in source or binary form without charge of all major platforms and can be freely distributed. So you can use the packages or any other major platforms. So the first thing how to start Python program is every programming language has its own source extension to identify the type of the program. So the first, for example, let's create day1.py. Py is the source extension for Python program. So the interpreter could understand that this is Python. So everything written inside this files could be interpreted by the Python interpreter, and we see the output is, so we organize our ideas in commands inside this file, and the computer could understand your commands, and it's allow us to communicate with the computer through our commands, which organized inside the Python file. Okay. So the first thing inside this, so once you create your file, like .py file. So you can give any file name, but most of the time it is recommended that you write a descriptive file name that identifies the purpose of the script written inside that file. Okay, the first thing we are going to learn in this tutorial is comments. So comments, how can we define comments inside this? For example, we basically use hash symbol. So this hash symbol is used for commenting lines of commands inside the Python file. So whatever written inside this comment or with a hashtag, that is a comment. So the interpreter couldn't run that. It can be ignored by the interpreter, the Python interpreter. So it will not display on the output device. So ironically, the first thing we are going to do is show how to tell a computer to ignore a part of a program. So the computer interpreter could understand that this is a comment. For example, if you're something, this is a comment, so that the interpreter ignores this line because this is a comment. So the text written in a program but not run by the computer is called a comment. Python interprets anything after a hashtag, because that is a comment and ignored by the computer interpreter. So commenters can provide a context for why something is written the way it is. So if you write after something commands inside that file, so you can easily understand that why you write this line of code. So that comment could tell you or could tell something that this line of code is for this purpose. Okay, let's comment something. This code will calculate the sum of 2 plus 2. So without understanding that line of code, you can simply read these comments and you can understand that the following code is just calculate the sum of 2 and 2. So this tells us and we can easily understand. That's why comment is. And comment help other people reading the code and understand it faster. So as a professional developer or programmer, comment is very essential. So you should write comments for each line of code. Why you write that line of code? So other people or reviewer can understand that this line of code is written for this purpose easily. Ignore a line of code and see how a program will run without this. So this returns the sum of numbers, for example. Let's say there is another way of writing comment. So we can use, for example, 3 single quotes. So inside this single quote, especially if you want to write a multi-line comment, this is return the sum of 9 plus 3. Okay. This is multi-line comment. This is a single line comment. So if you want to write a single line comment, you can use hashtag before the text. And if you want to write multi-line comment, you can use single triple quotes, or you can write double triple quotes. Double triple quotes, that is a comment. So you can use either double triple quotes or single triple quote to write multi-line comments. Okay, especially if you are if you want to write the purpose of the function, you can use this. This is a type of docstring. So this is all about comments, and the next is about function. What is the first function that you are going to learn as a beginner is print function. So this print function now going to do is teach your computer to communicate. So the gift of speech is valuable. A computer can answer many questions we have about how, why, or what it is doing. Those are the very essential questions that the computer going to do. In Python, the print function is used to tell a computer to talk. So the message to be printed should be surrounded by quotes inside this. For example, if you want to print, you can put any message inside this. Hello, world. So every message should be surrounded by the quotation, either single quote or double quote. So here, print function just tells her to talk. Okay. Now, once save this file and run this code. To run this code, you can type Python 3 on terminal, and you can call the file name after that Python command. For example, day1.py. Yeah, the output is just printed. So this function tells to the computer what to do. So the computer can do that. It prints this as an output. So this print function tells to the computer, please print this output on the screen. So it could be visible to the programmer or the user. So the user can understand this output, but the user couldn't understand what is written inside this file. Okay. So this is the way how you could communicate with a computer. So you just give your commands to the computer, and the computer can understand your ideas. So that command is written in the file, and the interpreter will interpret your commands, and then it prints out the output on the screen, and you could understand that output as a beginner. So the message to be printed should be surrounded by a quotation, either single quote or double quotes. For in this case, I just use single quote. Python could understand either single quote or double quote. So you can change it to double quote. And you can run this code and it prints the same output. But if you begin with single quotes, it should be ended by double single quote, not different or other quotes like double quotes. So once begin with single quotes, it should be ended with single quote as well. For example, in this case, it just highlights a error because it is a string literal unterminated, because it is begin with single quote, it is not ended with the same quote. So if it is begin with double quotes, it should be terminated with double quotes. That is the case that as a beginner, you should understand. And let me run this, for example. So this is syntax error. The syntax error says that unterminated string literal. So this should be terminated with the same symbols of quotation. So it does return that output as well. Okay, we could also, for example, if you wanna print the sum of two numbers, for example, 9 plus 3, you don't need to surround by double quotes, but you can use, for example, 3 plus 9. It just prints that, so the computer could understand that this is addition, because these are integers, not strings. So in between two integers, there is operation. That operation is called addition operation. So it can perform this is addition, and it prints out the sum of 3 and 9. That is the all. Okay. So this print statement or function is very essential. So it's prints the specified message to the screen or other standard output devices. So the message can be a string or any other object, either integer or Boolean or any other objects. So the object will be converted into a string before written to the screen, before printed out on the screen. Okay. So this is a basic to Python programming. And the next is strings. Computer programmers refer to blocks of text as strings. So every block of statements which is surrounded by quotation is a strings. For example, this is a strings, but this could be a comment because it is surrounded by three double quotes. This is basically doc string type. And for example, as you can hello, or for example, 9 plus 3. If any messages which is surrounded by quotation is a string, when you print this, for example, it just prints 9 plus 3, not the result of the sum of 9 and 3, because it is surrounded by quotation. So everything which is surrounded by quotation is a string. So the computer could understand that this is a string and it prints as it is. So in Python, a string is either surrounded by double quotation or single quotation, as I have said earlier. So it may be surrounded by single quotes or double quotes, whatever it is called strings. Yeah, the same. So it doesn't matter which kind you use. Python supports double quote or single quotation to surround strings, okay? But you couldn't use start with single quotes and terminate by double quotes. That is error, syntax error. So it is unterminated syntax error. So you should use the same ending, starting and ending quotation to surround strings. Okay. The other important thing is variables and naming. Variables is very essential in computer programming. So every computer programming language offers a method of storing data for reuse. So we could store any type of data in a computer and we can reuse that data anytime we want to use, okay? So if there is a creating, we wanna present a date, we need to reuse, or a user ID, we need to remember, we can create a variable which can store a value. So variables are containers that can store data values in a computer memory. So that container is like a trash can. For example, a trash can is a container that stores as trash, okay? The same is true in computer memory. You can store any type of data. For example, string data, integer data, Boolean data, or any objects, and you can reuse that data by calling then the container, the variable, okay? That's why we call it reuse that variables. In Python, we assign variables by using the equal sign. For let's assume x and assign. This is assignment operator. So we assign values to that variable. For example, 3. So 3 is a value and x is a variable. And this is an assignment operator that could assign the value 3 to the variable x in computer. So in computer memory, this is a container that could store this value. If you want to use this or if you want to get the values from computer memory, once it is stored, you can refer the name of the variable. Okay. So for example, if you want to get the values stored in x variable, I just call the x variable, and when you run this code, you can see that 3 is stored in that x variable, okay? Unlike other computer programming languages, Python has no command for declaring a variable. So we can simply, there is no any keywords or commands to declare variables in Python, but in other programming language like C++ and Java, we first specify the type of the variable to which kind of values you want to store in computer memory. But here, any type of values could be stored in computer memory without specifying the type of that value. Okay. So a variable is created the moment you first assign a value to it. Once you assign value to that variable, so the variable could create in computer memory, and that variable could store the value. Okay. So we don't use any. That's why we call Python is a dynamic type of programming language, because it's just dynamically allocate memory spaces when you assign value to that variable. For example, if you change the value of this, for example, any string, automatically store that string instead of integer. Okay, so it just identifies the type of the that variable after storing that data in computer memory with the variable name. So the memory space can be allocated after the value is stored in computer memory during the assignment of that memory, not before assigning the value of the variable. So for example, let us assume we have message underscore string, and this is a variable name, and this could store any either string or integer or string. For example, hello there. This is a string, so this variable could store any type of data in computer memory. For example, if you want to print this, you can just call the variable name and reuse. This is called what? Reusing that variable anytime you want. Okay, now I can run this code and print out the result. Hello there. Hello there is already stored in computer memory, so this message underscore string variable, and I can reuse this variable anytime in my computer program, and I can see what is stored in that variable. Okay. In this example, we store the message hello there in a variable called message underscore string. So variable do not need to be declared with any particular type in Python. That's why we call it a dynamic type of programming language, and you can't even change the type after they have been set. Here, I can even change, for example, for. Initially, I was define a variable which stores string, but I just modified that value and I stored for. So if I print message twice, and it could print the first and the second, but the variable is still the same, but it just stores different values. So that's because it could store any type of values, it doesn't matter. So that the space of in the memory can be determined based on the values we store in that variable. All right. So in C++, we can create variable. For example, in C++, we first determine the type of the variable x, and we always store the same type. We couldn't store a string, for example, hello there, because we already determine the type of the variable that this variable could store integer type only. That is called static type programming language. It is good actually for efficiency. That's why now in 2023, there is a new programming language that's called module programming language that supports C++ and Python features as well. Okay, all right. So string variables can be declared either by using single or double quotes, as I have said. So you can store any string values, either single quote or double quotes in string variable. For example, let's say a variable first name, which is a civil. and first name. So when I call, for example, okay, here in the first, I just defined a variable first name and the values is Asiba in single quote. And the second first name, the values is Asiba in double quote. So in two variables, then basically in natural, it is the same, but they are different. Here, I used underscore to separate two words as a single variable. Here, I used camel case, the camel case without a space, without underscore. I just use capital letter in the first word of the second word. So when I print this, it prints out the first one only. The second is not printed out. So variables, a variable can have a short name like x, for example, 12, or y, whatever, a, b, it doesn't matter, or a more descriptive name. But it is strongly recommended that you use a descriptive name like first name. For example, this can describe that this variable stores the first name of any person, okay? And the second is also the same. So when you are defining a variable, you can use descriptive name instead of x. X doesn't describe any values. It's just x. X stores whether integer, string, or whatever. That's what kind of data that x variable is storing. We couldn't understand the type of the data. But when you are using descriptive name, when defining variable, it is good to describe what is the value that the variable is storing in memory. Okay, so for example, if you wanna, let's say this is 30, let's stores age. Let's assume this stores age of a student, okay? And another variable, age 30, age of student. So which name could describe the data stored in that variable? X stores the age of a student, okay? Age variable also stores the age of student. So age variable is a descriptive name. So it just describes that this value is the age of a student, okay? We can understand that. So you always consider that when you define a variable, you could use descriptive name rather than using any variable. Okay, that's the good and recommended way. Rules for Python variables declaration. Variable name must start with a letter. So always start with a letter like this. Not a number. For example, if you start with a number, it's just errors because a statement must be separated by new lines or semicolons because this is not a variable name, a wrong variable name. So it always begins with a letter and followed by any number, for example, 1, whatever, x1, say, doesn't matter. Variables can have spaces, for example, when you remove this space and an underscore, it's errors because first is not defined. You see, this is error and you couldn't use spaces between two consecutive words as a single variable. So either using underscore or like camel case without space. Even you don't use hyphen. Hyphen is not allowed in variable declaration, okay? Only underscore is allowed. You can begin with underscore, but you can't begin with numbers. Underscore is possible to begin variable name. And can't begin with numbers, but they can have numbers after the first letter. So variable name can only contain alphanumeric characters and underscores. Alpha. For example, you can't use like other special characters. Like it's not possible to use variables begin with any special characters except underscore. Okay. All right. Variable names are case sensitive. So as I have said, for example, first underscore name and first name, just two variables are different. They are storing different values. Okay. So for example, age 14. This age in small letter and this age in begin with capital letter they are different. They are storing different variables. So they are, when you are calling, for example, age in small letter, it's just printed the first values only because they are case sensitive. Okay. It's not coincidence. We call this creatures variables. If the context of a program changes, we can update a variable but perform the same logical process on it. So in this example, we create a variable message string, first name, last name, age, or whatever, and we assign different values to each of the variables. So after we print each of the variables, it just prints out the values of the variables stored in that variable, not the variable name as it is. Because this is called reusing the variable, and because we store data in computer memory through that container, and we are always calling the name of the container that's storing the values, and it's just printed out the values stored in that container instead of the variable name as a text or string. So that's the thing. So you should understand, you should keep in mind. So it is just assume a trash can that stores a trashes. So when you are keeping trash inside that trash can, that's a container. It stores any kind of trashes. So when you are, the same is true in variables, it just stores any kind of data. And when you are calling the container to print the values stored in that container, and it's just show us what is stored in that container, okay? Which is a valid variable name. So for example, let me give you an assignment. For example, the first one, 2 underscore x 2, and second question, first name Steve, and third question, age is 30, and fourth question, x underscore 23, which is 23, and fifth question, which is underscore age, that is 30, and the other is sixth question, first space name. Okay, one more question, last hyphen name. Okay, and eighth is last name. So I just want to ask you a question. Which of the following variables are valid. So you can just write in the comment the numbers. Sorry, this is which number. For example, if you choose 2, 4, 5, you can write separating by comma in the comment section of this. Sorry, and I wanna just now, if you get understand about today's tutorial. So if you like this tutorial, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Write comments below. Thanks for watching today.